Now, the topic, vaccination to survive the industry. I believe every one of us has, in some way or the other, been told by industry experts, academicians, however, and a few uh, lectures that we must have heard online about how to enter an industry. You must have been told, in fact, when I sent out mailers about this particular series, the first part of it was called Bridge. And the idea of Bridge was to bridge the gap between the industry and the academics. I believe a lot of lectures have been taken on this regards, and we've managed to provide some knowledge to all of you about the bridge. And I'm sure every training and placement department of every college tells you very similar things. You must have heard it online. But the next question is, once you enter the industry, then what? It is a completely different ballgame. College, schools, and when you enter the industry, it's a completely different ballgame. Trust me on that. There is absolutely no one to help in terms of teachers, the professors, and here you're on your own. And due to the high population competition, it is very difficult to survive. Of course, you can survive, but then are you doing justice to your talent, to your dreams that you want to fulfill? Majority of us settle for something less than we deserve. And thus, I decided to give you a small talk on, I've labeled it correctly, vaccination to survive the industry. Now, fortunately, my parents have their own IT firm, and I am a part of that. So when I speak, I'm speaking from the perspective of the management and what the management expects. So moving on. So the first slide is beyond. And I think in my introduction, I have spoken why beyond. So every single person, once he or she enters a company, majority of you will be working in an Infosys or a Tech Mahindra or an Accenture. Now you have to realize that these are big four companies. The big four, namely the Accentures and Tech Mahindras, Infosys, Wipro, to some extent TCS and Persistent. Now, I am sure every one of you all have heard about what is ISO 9000, ISO 27000. These are certifications that a company requires to do business. One such certification is called CMMI. Now, there are multiple types of CMM, but to do business in the US or the Europe, majority of companies need to have a CMM 3 and above certification. And all these big companies have a CMM 5 certification as the minimum. One of the clause in achieving a CMMI certification is to have reserve staff, or to have certain percentage, maybe 10% or 20% of the entire staff on the bench. And this is something that no one tells you about. No one tells you about that once you enter an Infosys after the initial 6 months of training, most likely for the next 1 year, you're going to be on the bench. And that is true. It is simply true because of the fact that they need to maintain a certain strength on the bench to be eligible for the CMM 5 level. And thus they're mass recruiters. And thus they pick up students in bulk. You think that you've got into a very good company in the top companies of the country, but in reality, the experience that you're going to get is perhaps zero, because you're just going to be sitting on the bench. You will have to walk into the office, maintain the 45 hours a week criteria, and post that, you are going to be leaving without, you may not even have a computer. Now you may ask, why do they do this? Typically, a company charges somewhere around $50 an hour per resource to their client. right? $50 per hour with 8 hours working is close to 50 into 8, about $400 that a company earns only by one resource from their customer. Now, what is the level? What is a calculation of $50 or $800 with the current rate? Have you all thought of that? It is 800 into 75 approximately, that is 60,000. In a single day, a company is earning 60,000 on behalf of one resource. But how much do they pay you? Any guesses? What is the package that Infosys typically pays? Per month, approximately 25,000. So for two freshers, they earn that amount in one day. So it does not make any difference to them. That's why they are bulk hirers. And that's why you have to realize which company you want to work in. Once you enter a company, how do you ensure that you have got some experience? To add to this, post 1 year or 1.5 years of doing a job in one of these companies, you decide to leave and jump to another company. I think we've all realized, the companies, the HRs, that someone coming from the big four or the big IT firms, 1.5 years of experience means nothing. So they treat you as a fresher. Now, of course, you might say that in case of the current economic scenarios, you might not get a job. So why not continue with one of these big fours? Of course, you should. There are no two ways about it. You should. But once you enter, utilize that time to upskill yourself. Do courses, do a distance learning MBA, do a nano degree from some college, anything that you like. Don't just go to the office, utilize the TT tables and the badminton courts and the cafeterias and do nothing. Because one more calculation that no one tells you is that once you enter the company, approximately the starting average package is about 3 to 5 lakh rupees. Let's say 25,000 rupees a month is what you're typically earning. And in these 25,000 rupees that you earn, you have to realize that if you decide to do an MBA after 4 years, when your salary might be 50,000 rupees a year or maybe 60,000 rupees a year, 1 year MBA or 2 years MBA is going to set you back by your salary into 12 or into 24 months. However, if you do an MBA or an MTech or an MS, maybe distance learning, or maybe after 1 year of entering the job life, the loss is much lesser because you're earning typically about 25,000 to 30,000 rupees a month. So you have to realize that the timing of doing an MS and MTech as early in your career reduces the losses. That is something that I believe is something that you need to learn. Of course, you can use this session as a ask me anything question. You can float questions into the Q&A section of the screen. Keep asking questions. I will try my best to answer them to my best of my ability. Moving to the next slide. Yes, this is what I strongly believe. A lot of us have a great ability, great capabilities, great dreams, and thus we settle for the good. I've got a job in Infosys. I'm earning 25,000 rupees, good life. I am staying on rent. Maybe after a couple of years, I will switch. I'll jump to another company. My salary will increase. I'll do an MS. Hopefully, get married soon, and then that's how the life is. It's good. It's settled. But are you satisfied? For me, good is the enemy of great. Because typically, majority of us end up settling for the good instead of the great. And how do we ensure such things? So when you're working in the good, basically you're doing an autopilot job. You put your airplane or your life into an autopilot mode, and you are then moving ahead, and you're happy with what's going on, whichever company, whichever life, whichever college you're working in. But great work requires a lot of initiative, a lot of creativity, a lot of courage, and of course, that may sound like a lot of effort. But unless you put in the effort, unless you have the passion, the courage, and the creativity to succeed, you will be and every other person in the company, because every other person is perhaps doing the same thing. So people settle for less than what they deserve. And this is the fundamental truth of the job life. You have to realize that you can be great. You can do multiple things. You have to realize that once you enter a company, it could be maybe 10 freshers that a company is hired, 50 freshers. How do you climb up the ladder? You've entered as the same folks who've entered, perhaps at the same CTC that you're going to earn. Eventually, you're going to be doing the same thing that your peers are doing. So, how do you grow? How do you do something different that puts you in the limelight? For that, you have to take initiative, and thus leave the good to achieve great. That's the only way. You have to get rid of being satisfied and not having a, a vision or a dream or the appetite for doing something more intensive that requires a lot of effort. Moving on. Performance versus truth. This is a matrix that I personally believe is very important, and I will just switch on a pen. Yeah. Now on the x-axis we have performance, on the y-axis we have performance, and on the x-axis we have truth. Right? Now, when I, as a manager or an owner or a project manager, or I'm looking to build a team, what kind of person am I looking at? The truth is that based on the feedbacks that are taken, the appraisals that are done, everyone has performance as a criteria. There are multiple methods of performance, but there are hardly or perhaps none to measure the truth. Now, if you look at this particular block, this typically is the low performer, low truth, or low trust worthy guys. And you have to realize that this particular person is least desirable in a team. Here, so I'm equating truth and trust together, okay? So just because it says truth, do not confuse why am I speaking of trust. It's perhaps in the industry life, it's one of the same things. Now, this particular guy that is here is a high performer and a high trust or person. Everyone wants this fellow. And this fellow here is a high performer, but a low trust person. This person will have his performance at his peak, but the moment he gets a better opportunity, he will just move away. The moment he gets a better opportunity to spoil someone's career or stamp over someone and grow, this is the person who's going to do that. So when I build a team or when I'm working on a project, do I want this person? Ideally, I want this person. But obviously, these persons are rare. This person or these types of people are very rare. So I wouldn't mind settling for someone who is a mediocre in performance, but high on trust. Maybe sometimes I wouldn't mind having someone who is low on performance and low, but high on trust. And trust me, if you go and ask any team member, which person do you hate? Or who is the most annoying person in a team? Every single person will point out at this fellow. But if you ask someone who is the go-to person, who is always there to help others or be there to guide someone or take the initiative, majority of people again will point out at the same person. And that person might be a mediocre performing person, but very high on trust. So I believe that anyone who enters the industry, performance is very good. It is required. But to build a team, to grow, to become a project manager, to become a leader, I believe you need to be high on trust. And that's why in my company, people who I trust, I prefer giving them an appraisal higher than a very high performer who might ditch me at any point of time. So this is what I think. This is where I would want each one of you. This should be your target, this block here. However, start off from here rather than somewhere here. I hope I'm making sense. I'm not even sure that some of you might disagree, but this is out of experience, and this is how I believe in building a team. So any questions so far? Can I just check the Q&A section? Okay, so no questions. You can keep shooting the questions here. Moving on. Momentum versus accomplishment. Again, a very interesting. Okay, I think Shweta Chavan has raised her hand. Can I ask? I think she's. Okay, was it by mistake, Shweta? Okay, sorry. You can just type in your question in the chat or in the Q&A, and I will try answering the question. I think someone raised their hands. That's why I was trying to ask.
I don't see anyone raising their hands.
Okay, anyways, no issues. So momentum versus accomplishment. Now, suppose you have a team and you give them this red block as a target, maybe a financial target or the end of financial year or calendar year, and this red dot is the target that is there. And you have a team who is their performance is, or the momentum is plotted on by the red line, right? They will beg, borrow, steal. There will be very high people who are going to do very high jobs, or high accuracy, high efficient people, and then there will be suddenly bad time when there will be people who are going to go right down. So it's basically a very random. So it is a very random plot that you can see on the graph. So it's basically a team that the team members might resign at any point of time. They might not perform. They might not understand the importance. They might just go on leaves, and thus you see the plot that is absolutely random. However, at the end, they might just put by any method, hook, crook, as I stated earlier, beg, borrow, steal, and achieve the target. Right? So when they achieve this target, the management is happy, they will give them the bonus, and we move on. But typically nowadays we've realized that they manage to achieve a target in a given time frame currently. Next time, there is no assurance. There is no guarantee or assurance that a particular team, which has a very random behavior of working, would be able to achieve the target every single time. Now, if you look at another set of team, right, who steadily grow, you can see the green line that's here, who steadily grow and build on the project slowly and steadily, and they're working as a team, as a cohesive unit, and they simply grow straightforward. They improve every day, and they might not achieve the target that was set by the team member, the management, but they would be very close to achieving the target. You can see the green dot. It is not the target, but they've achieved pretty close to a target that was there. So I personally would rather have a team that works in momentum, who perhaps not accomplishes the target, but I'm sure of the team that maybe after 2 months or a month or 3 months or a quarter, they would have reached here. So I would rather give a bonus to such a team or such a leader who can work in momentum, who has a momentum and who can achieve the target. But a lot of companies don't have the bandwidth or the willpower to settle for something less, and thus they expect something less. Now, if you eventually would be becoming a project manager at some point of time in your careers, maybe 5 years down the line, maybe 10 years down the line, and when you build a team, I would really request you to build a team that works as a team with the perfect momentum that is there, and not random haphazard planning where there's no assurance, no guarantee. Because this team will always benefit, the client will always be happy, the customers will be happy, the management, the owners, the appraisal staff will always be happy with a team that works as a cohesive unit and manages to reach somewhere. Now, if you look at movies or Amazon rating of a product, if, for example, I have launched a product and I'm selling this on Amazon, I can ask my friends. Typically on Facebook, I might have 500 friends, and I might request them that, all 500 of you in one given hour purchase my book or my item that I'm selling. And suddenly Amazon's algorithm will be like, oh, this is the best-selling book or best-selling item. So it is so simple to fool any algorithm that is in the system. If I request 500 people to buy a book that I have authored, by default, I am their Amazon's best-selling author, and I've achieved that tag. And is that a sense of accomplishment? Now, I would rather have people give me an honest feedback. I would rather want to hear from people whether my book or my talk, for this matter, was a 2-star talk or 4-star talk or a 5-star talk, rather than by ratings. There are plenty of people who sell likes and videos, and it just helps you accomplish something. But how long will you hide from that? How long can you portray that? Someday the truth will come out. So please focus on momentum. It is what will help you grow. When you manage people, when you hire people, again, focus on momentum. Give the benefit of doubts to people who might not achieve your target, but will reach there slowly and steadily. Okay, moving on. Help. It takes true strength or the courage to ask for help. And whenever you need help, ask. Because we don't ask help, we suddenly get lost in an ocean where people are running for competition. They want to prove their worth. They want to achieve something that people haven't achieved, and basically build the trust and get the appraisals. And because of this, a lot of people feel left out, inferior, and they don't feel like asking help, and they struggle. So when you enter a company, remember this: till you don't ask, you don't get. Every company will listen to you, will try helping you if you ask. They are not astrologers, they can't read your minds, and they will not be able to help you if you don't ask. Take feedbacks from people, take feedbacks from your peers, take a feedback from your manager, try working on it. Don't feel offended if it's a negative feedback. Take the feedbacks, work on it, improve, ask help, learn something, and you will grow. When you become the project managers, give feedbacks. Hold monthly or quarterly meetings with your team members, have one-on-one meetings, ask them, give them feedbacks, ask them if they require any help. And you will see people will open up to you. Right? Planning. Now, this is something very, very important. But the first point, the bullet point that is there, is even more important. Always plan considering the fact that no plan goes according to plan. There's a saying in my office, at least, that if your luck is bad, you might just be bitten by a dog in an airplane also. Because You might just be there where uh, or something hits you or something goes against plan where you when you least expect it. So whatever you pick up, always ask these four critical questions that are there: how, when, where, why. Whatever you're doing, ask how, when, what are the timelines, when is the deadline, where, where do you have to be, where do you have to deliver, and why are you doing this? In addition to all of this, always have a buffer. Always have some week or some days where they act like a buffer. And suppose some things don't go as per plan, you will be able to survive. You have the backup. Always have a backup, because don't be overconfident. Things hurt you when you least expect them. Right? So have an action plan, have an objective, have a strategy, have a collaboration, have a schedule, act in accordance, check what you're doing, what you're trying to implement it, but always have or consider the plan that you might know that things that you've planned may not go as planned. So you have to plan something like that. Now, uh, one of the softwares that our company deals with is the recruitment of the Indian Army and the Indian Coast Guard. Now, there are about 200 locations which are called Army recruiting offices across the country. We've provided them softwares for that. Now, these offices are from Kanyakumari to Leh to Cherrapunji to Rajasthan or Jodhpur, and the temperatures and the humidity and the environment basically is completely different. I remember there was a episode where there was this group holding a recruitment rally, and of course, when we've provided a software, so there are biometric devices, there are servers, there are PCs, and this was happening in Cherrapunji, and it was raining cats and dogs. Now, of course, during the rain, you can hold your physical activities for the candidates who want to enter the army, but how do you do all of this in the software? So what did the colonel or the officer in charge do there? He asked his Jawans to park two trucks back to back. Two trucks back to back. So it became a shelter. He put in the computers in these trucks and they conducted the rally. Now, this is out of box. You have to get real. You have to realize that in the moment of weakness, in the moment where things are not going as per plan, you have to be alert. You have to think out of box and get the job done by hook or by crook. And that's how the army works. That's how we have learned how to work, because things just don't go as per plan always. Right? Right. Now, this is a very important slide. Empathy. When you enter a company, when you're working as a team, have empathy. Empathy, of course, requires curiosity. You need to ask people, are you good? Are you feeling okay? Are you not feeling okay? You need to have that kind of rapport with your team members, with your manager, and be empathetic towards people around you. Still here, empathy requires curiosity. Empathy is essential for good leadership. Now, when we talk about numbers for the sales team or marketing team, we say that you have a target to meet. And for example, in 2 quarters, you need to have XYZ number. And a particular person starts working, and then maybe for 2 quarters continuously, he does not achieve the numbers. So a typical leader, project manager, or the owner will come up and say, you've been not performing for the last 2 quarters. If this continues for the next quarter, we have a problem, right? This is what a lot of people do, versus the other way around. Same person, not performing for 2 quarters, you go to him, tell him, You're not the problem. But is there some problem why you've not been able to achieve the target? You can ask them that, is there some issue in your personal life, in your professional life, in your marital life, or in your house that you're not been able to concentrate and give you 100%? Assume that the person is not the problem, rather they have the problem. Assume this. And when with this attitude, when you try to go and speak to people, they for sure will open up. Give them space, give them the trust that yes, they can open up to you. That's the quality that you require to build and hopefully impart to others, to other members that exist in your team. So be empathetic. That is a very, very important thing. And you need to have curiosity about your team members. Now, this is, by the way, applicable to your girlfriends and oblique boyfriends. Office politics. Trust me, every office has a political scenario. It exists. That is the truth. Everyone's trying to save their ass, which is on fire when things don't go as per plan. There will be blame games, there will be backstabbing, people will not work as a team, and there is no escaping it. That is unfortunate truth of the industry, that office politics exist in majority, I would go up and say 95% of the industries or offices. So you have to learn the art of diplomacy. You have to learn how to be diplomatic, how to be good with everyone. Don't take sides. Don't don't pinpoint fingers. Don't stab people in the backs. Try being a team player. Try being diplomatic. Be good to everyone. And that's perhaps diplomacy is the only way of dealing with office politics and surviving it. And of course, once you reach a position of command or authority, I'm sure you would know how office politics works and you can get rid of it. So one of the reasons after my engineering, worked in a company called Mu Sigma in Bangalore was that I didn't want to join my parents' business directly because I would never know how an employee feels. What are the issues that an employee feels? So when you enter an office, try, of course, if you're an employee, you need to learn, speak to people, understand how they're feeling, and also think from the management's perspective. How and what would they do? So diplomacy is a very important art that you have to learn to survive the industry. Unpredictability. Yeah. Now, I think this is a topic that is perhaps the reason why a lot of people or companies or teams don't grow. Because if you give someone a time, then I'll be there in 5 minutes, and you're not, the impression that you've given to that person is that you're not sure whether I should be present or next time, do I expect you in 5 minutes or it's not? Suppose you tell me that this work will take 2 days. I give you the 2 days, but at the end of 2 days, there are 100 excuses that you can make and tell me the work was not done. If there is paperwork that a client requires or a company requires or someone who has to pay you in the government, there's paperwork. So you are given 5 files, 5 papers, 5 forms that you need to sign. After you finish those, suddenly you have another bunch of 5 forms. Unpredictability. Unpredictability is equal to gamble when there is no assurance. So become predictable. The commitments that you give 99% of time, try achieving it. Try being predictable. Whatever you commit, try living up to it. Try building that trust that if XYZ, one of you guys have told whether it's a company or project manager or the customer that we will get this done by this particular time and date, get it done. You can have a buffer stock, but be predictable. This is something that will help you and help you learn a lot, that the commitments that you give need to be fulfilled. If you've given a time for a meeting, be there. If you have to be at a meeting, try being, if you're meeting a customer, try being 5 minutes or 10 minutes earlier. There's no harm being early, because again, as I stated in the earlier slides, you never know. Plans don't go as per plan. So there might be a traffic, there might be an accident, anything. So try being predictable. Leadership. Now, eventually, all of you all are going to become leaders. So bad leaders care about who's right. Good leaders care about what's right. And leadership has nothing to do with the rank. You might not believe, but your project manager might just be younger to you. He might just be earning much more than you, because he proved to his management that he is a better leader than you. Now, you can have an ego, you can have issues about it, that how can someone junior to me is better, or how can someone who is less deserving in your opinion be your project manager. But that is a reality. People will jump roles, jump designations, and eventually the number of leaders who can be there are very finite. The number of positions in the leadership team, in the project management team are limited. And thus, you have to be, you have to portray yourself that you can be a good leader. Lead the way with positivity, with optimism. Try being the first person to react to a problem. There's an issue, and your team members should be able to know who's going to react first. Try being that person who will always react when there's an issue. And remember something, the last point that's there, amateurs discuss tactics, but leaders discuss logistics. For any project, you need to have the logistics planned. If you look at the current border scenario with India and China, where army is in Leh and in the borders at minus 16, minus 30 degrees temperature, logistics is what matters. Its tactics, of course, are important, but logistics is the most critical thing that you as a leader needs to plan, needs to take into consideration. Get your logistics in order. I think once you have the logistics in order, I'm sure your tactics will also will also be ready. Perfection and progress. Now, perfection is important, but for me, progress is equivalently, if not more important. You might be perfect in something, you might want to deliver the best of softwares, but if that perfection is going to take a long time, what's the point? You might just create a perfect software, perfect app, but if you've not been able to launch it, someone else will take the credit. Some other company, some other product, some other app will come into the market and go ahead. So all the big companies, whether it's Google or Microsoft, they have developed a product and they have continuous updates to it. Same thing, you need to realize that don't aim for perfection alone. Perfection is important, no question about that. But progress is the most important thing that you need to focus on. You have to focus on how can you grow, how you can move forward, how you can upgrade and upskill yourself. During my years of engineering, that was about 2010, software was, or IT was the next big thing. People moved towards IT. Everyone used to get into companies. Computer engineering, IT engineering were the best branches. Today we talk about machine learning and data science, and everyone wants to do that. Tomorrow, it could be something different. You have to upgrade yourself. You have to upskill yourself. The goal is not to be perfect by the end. The goal is to be better tomorrow. This is, according to me, how someone should approach their job life. Don't target perfection. Just try to be better every day. Patience provides perspective. Now, this is a small anecdote that I remember. There was a small girl and she was holding two apples in her hand, and she was walking towards her mother, and her mother asked, "Oh, you're holding two apples. Can I eat one?" So she quickly took a bite of one apple that was in her right hand, and immediately she took another bite of the apple in the second hand, in the left hand. This offended the mother, that she requested her own daughter to share an apple that she had, and she simply bit into both. But she didn't react. That was a good thing. She did not react. So after a pause of say 5 seconds or something, the daughter offers an apple in her right hand to her mother and says, "This one is sweeter." Now this is what I'm trying to say: patience. She had the patience. The mother had the patience. She did not react. She gave that extra pause, the extra few seconds, and there was a completely different perspective, right? So anything that you do, have patience. Think, think from all angles. Take the extra 10 seconds. Think, how would you react or give the benefit of doubt to someone else? I'm sure you will have a completely different perspective majority of the times if you simply have patience. Do not react. Do not give a knee-jerk reaction. Emotions. Now, this is again, unfortunately, Indians, I'm not saying it in a negative manner, have emotions. We get offended, we have positive emotions and negative emotions, and we can't handle our emotions. That's truth. So when there's high stress time, you need to manage your emotions. There, you might plan out in every particular manner, but if you have a fight with a girlfriend or boyfriend, that's about it. You are going to have a bad day. Look at the screen. Everything will be jumbled up. That's the truth. And now the second point that I'm talking about here, relationships about mid-level people. This is something that I've realized dealing with a lot of people, that when you're looking at the lowest level folks who are the freshers, or maybe people who have 2 years or 3 years of experience, and even arguably lower, the receptionist or the security guards, those people, and the top management, the leaders, the owners, they have a completely different method of dealing with emotions. So if you're having a cup of tea, and you walk into someone's office who is your leader, owner, he will offer you tea, ask his helper to get tea for you. He will not have his tea till your tea does not come. But if you're looking at the mid-level folks, since they don't have emotions and they don't care a hoot, if they're having tea and you're around, they will not even offer to you. So don't be the typical mid-level, because those mid-level folks are there in that position and they will always remain in that position. They will jump companies, but they most likely will not be the leaders, or would be very bad leaders. So you need to have emotional intelligence, and that is very, very critical. Be intelligent, of course, be emotionally intelligent as well. Courage. Now, of course, there's a lot of pressure. Your manager, your company may ask you to do a lot of things. As stated earlier, till you don't ask, you don't get. But you need to have the courage to say, screw it. I'm not doing it. I don't care about what people think. Be yourself, because everyone else is taken. And courage is knowing what not to fear. Be different, get out of your comfort zone. It is okay to suck at something. It is okay to be bad. What is not okay is if you cannot improve, if you don't learn. So have the courage to say, this is something that I typically believe is FBI, right? Feelings, behavior, and impact. Feelings, behavior, impact. Think about your feelings. Think about your behavior. Think about how your behavior, action, reaction, and what impact will this have. If you remember these three letters as an acronym of feelings, behavior, and impact, I am sure you would be able to say no. You would be able to get out of your comfort zone and be different. Balance. This is something that is very critical. You can't work 24 hours. You need to have a work and personal life balance. It is very important. It is very critical to have a personal life and a work life balance. It is very critical. Just remember that. You need to relax. You need to be spirited. You need to have a life. You need to exercise. You need to work hard. You need to be fit. You need to be well. You need to have harmony. You need to work. You need to meditate. And of course, that's how you live your life. So you need to manage to achieve the perfect balance. Now, this balance is not only between work and personal, it is also between work and learning. That is your work and how you're going to upgrade yourself or upskill yourself, how you're going to do extra courses, learn something new. So that balance needs to be achieved as well. You need to manage a balance between your customer and your management. Your customer may want anything under the hood. Your management will say, we're going to charge. So you need to be perfect, you need to achieve that perfect balance. When we avoid difficult conversations, we trade short-term discomfort function, right? So it is okay to be discomfort for the time being, but don't become dysfunctional. So to conclude, this is a saying that I've read and I completely believe in this. When the game's over, the king and the pawn go back in the same box. Eventually, when you resign, when you retire, no matter what you do, you're going to be doing the same old thing. Just remember this line. So thank you very much, guys. This is all from my side. I hope I could drive some sense. It could be absolutely, I'm sure you may not agree with a lot of points that I've raised, but even if you have raised certain points, I'm happy. So time for some Q&As. I see there are certain questions. And the questions that I see, how does industry evaluate a trustworthy person? So how I typically do is that if there's a critical problem, if something's not working, who is the first person that I'm going to reach out to? For me, that is the most trustworthy person, right? That's how I evaluate trustworthiness. I believe in someone who does a good job and we are able to rely on him. I know that if I call him on a Sunday, he will be there if the need be. Next question, how do you find or predict such type of people who have momentum? It is observation. I think you have to observe how someone's really improving day in and day out, how someone's steadily increasing and uh, improving and learning and achieving some targets, rather than people who are random, who have random behavior, who are abrupt. So momentum is something that you can measure simply by observation. How to deal with overthinking when working in industry? Patience, I think that's the key word that I think of. Patience is something that you need to have when you're working in the industry. Don't overthink. As I stated earlier, be yourself because someone or everyone else is taken. So you need to have patience. That's the only way that you can stop overthinking. Okay, any other question? So I hope you guys had a good time and you could learn something. If there are no more questions, I can introduce you to the next speaker. Sure. Okay. So I hope you guys could have a good time and you learned something in this talk, maybe actually from the web series completely. And I'm sure you guys are going to take something out of it. We are a bunch of friends who feel passionate about helping students, something that we missed during our college years. And thus, we are holding these web series. There have been a lot of feedbacks that we've received. And one of those feedbacks was just a sec. Yeah, so one of those feedbacks was to have a talk on share markets, a talk on machine learning and data science. Of course, you can keep sending your suggestions. We will try incorporating them, having talks in the future. Someone demanded to have a talk on psychology and psychiatrists. So we are in the process of finding people who can give you an expert opinion on these, right?